As we talked about last week, our minds are constantly scanning the environment for things that are important to us. Okay, so we're taking in all this information through our senses, and our brain is constantly filtering it. Okay, so we can't pay attention to everything.
Right.
And so our brain kind of picks and chooses what it brings our attention to and what it chooses to filter out. Okay, so there are all sorts of things that are happening in the environment right now that we're not aware of because we're paying attention to taping the video. It's like our refrigerator's on, I just noticed. And there are, on the road, there are probably cars and trucks, and we could probably pay attention to those if we tune into it. But it's not important to what we're doing, so we just tune it out. Our brains are doing this all the time. There's a wonderful example. If you've ever bought a car, or been interested in a certain type of car. Like when we moved to Colorado, we bought a car. And we started seeing the car that we were interested in everywhere. It felt like somebody had, driven like a tractor trailer full of these cars and unloaded them all over the road. And unless someone's playing a trick on us, that probably didn't happen. We just noticed it more. Than we otherwise would have.
But I mean, it's the same thing if you get a haircut, you suddenly notice everyone has the haircut. Or if you don't like it, everyone has the haircut that you wanted to get. Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It works that way with everything. You have a friend who gets pregnant, suddenly everyone you see is pregnant. It's funny.
Right. And this is a psychological phenomenon called priming. Okay? So when you decide that you're interested in something or something is worth your attention, priming is a way of basically programming your mind to draw your attention every time you see all of those things. So, for the car example, we were living in the middle of New York City. We didn't care about cars. They were basically just things that were on the road.
We had to avoid.
Yeah, and that was about as far as our attention got.
Yeah.
And now that, we were in the market for a car, a specific type, we were very interested in it. And so we noticed a lot more about those things because, to a certain extent, we had programmed our brain by being interested in something that it would serve us relevant information, which was quite handy. So your brain's constantly doing this. And so the benefit is because you're already doing it, you can learn how to do it consciously. You can learn how to program your brain to show you information that you're interested in. And one of the best examples of this, there's a book on the reading list called 10 Days to Faster Reading by Abby Marks Beale. And it's a wonderful book because it teaches you how to, double, triple, quadruple your reading speed relatively quickly. And, there are a lot of techniques that are discussed in the book, but the two that are really important, the first is, and these are my terms, these aren't necessarily Abby's, but one of the things that you do is purpose setting. So you decide, okay, you have a book. Why am I reading this book in the first place? What am I trying to do? And you start asking yourself questions and answering.
Right, because it's going to be different if you're reading it for enjoyment than if you're reading it to figure out how to file your taxes or something.
Yeah, and if you're reading a tax book to figure out how to file your taxes, what specific issues are you interested in?
Right.
What circumstances are you in? What exactly do you need to know? And by setting your purpose before you read, you're starting to program your mind to bring up relevant information when you find it or when you come across it. The other thing too is that it's a preview step where you actually go through and you read the table of contents, you read the index, looking for words and phrases that look like they're important, but you're not quite sure what they mean. And then you just skim the book, looking for the same thing, things that appear to be important or that have a lot of emphasis placed on them, but you don't quite understand it yet. By doing those two things, essentially what you're doing is you're programming your brain, you're giving it information about things to look for.
Right.
And after you do that, it's a really weird sensation. And I love, one of my favorite things to do is to go into Barnes & Noble and pick up a stack of 10 or 15 books and just do this.
And he remembers everything. It's nuts. And because this works really well.
It works really well. And, there's nothing magical about it. All I'm just saying is, okay, what am I interested in? What am I looking for? And then it's weird because you can just literally like flip like a second or two per page, just skimming the information, and then you'll stop and there will be something that is exactly pertinent to what you were looking for. I mean, it's
Try it though. It's cool.
Yeah, try it. I mean, it takes a little bit of practice to get used to it because it's a very different form of reading than most of us are used to, page by page, word by word, front of the book to the back. You can get most of the valuable information out of a book if you've practiced, 10 or 15 minutes.
Right.
Really. And you'll remember a lot of it. And, if you do go to your bookstore or your library and you experiment with this a little bit, bring a notebook with you. And then after you go through a stack of 10 or 15 books, take out your notebook and go book by book and write down in your notebook all of the cool things that you remember from that book. And you will absolutely astound yourself. And the reason that works, the reason that you're capable of doing that is you're pre-priming your brain to look for specific things that you're interested in.
Right.
And then when you're, as you're reading, your eyes and your brain are taking in far more information than you're aware of.
Right.
And you're filtering. And your brain will tell you, look there. And you'll direct your conscious attention to it, and there it will be. So sounds semi-voodoo-ish, but actually works really well. And priming is the reason that it works. So one of the things that makes a lot of sense to do, and goal setting is an example of this, states of being are an example of this. You're priming yourself on what you want. And after you prime yourself, you know what to look for. And so if you're trying to do something specific and something in your environment presents itself as an opportunity to do that, you'll be far more likely to recognize it if you've pre-primed yourself using goals, using states of being, all of these things. Your brain starts looking for ways to do it.
Exactly.
Which is really cool. It's where our brains are capable of remarkable things. And if you pre-program yourself to take advantage of the capabilities that you already have, you can get some very surprising results very quickly. That's priming.